A ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court.
The justices will allow the Trump administration to end deportation protections for 500,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. CNN Chief Supreme Court analyst Joan Biskupic joins us now. What more do we know about this, Joan?
Good to see you, Pamela and Wolf. This is the second time in this month that the Supreme Court has intervened in a case at an early stage and said that the Trump administration can start rolling back deportation protections for certain groups of migrants. As you said, this one involves Cuban, Haitian, Venezuelan, and Nicaraguan migrants who are here, nearly 500,000 people who had been granted a type of humanitarian parole during the Biden administration. But the humanitarian protections here go all the way back to the 1950s. But for this group of migrants, that has now been lifted. And the merits of the case will continue in lower courts, Pamela. But for now, it really gives the green light for the Trump administration to begin deporting people. And earlier this month, there were hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who were at stake in a separate temporary protected status case who also lost at this initial stage. The Supreme Court's order was not signed. There was no explanation. Only two justices broke off to dissent, liberals Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. But certainly what the Trump administration has been getting, at least in these types of deportation cases, is a green light from the Supreme Court. As you know, an administration has broad powers over immigration, but the legal issues go to how quickly they can roll back things, if there's been sufficient notice, whether they've followed proper procedures, and those questions will continue. But for now, it's definitely a win for the Trump administration.
For the second time this month, the U.S. Supreme Court has handed the Trump administration a win in its battle against immigration. Happening a short time ago, the court said it would allow the Trump administration to suspend a Biden-era program that allowed 500,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to work and live in the United States temporarily. The White House Deputy Chief of Staff had this to say about the ruling.
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. This is the most litigated issue over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, whether or not to deport the foreigners who invaded our country illegally. That is the most litigated issue. You want a democracy in this country? When Americans vote, when they cry out and they beg for a president to come and save them from this invasion, and some district court judge in San Francisco or Manhattan or Los Angeles tries to shut it down and shield these foreigners from deportation.
Priscilla Alvarez joins us now live from Washington with the details. So we're talking about 500,000 immigrants here who came to the United States and were accepted under President Biden under the guise of humanitarian parole is their status. Now they're going to lose their work permits, Priscilla, and what does that mean in terms of their status here? Are they going to have to leave immediately?
Well, Bianna, this is certainly a major blow to the nationals of those four countries, but we should know that there were some or many of these migrants that once they arrived to the United States through this parole program sought other forms of protection and immigration relief. This is particularly true with Cubans as well as some of these other nationalities, because again, while the parole program allowed them to be vetted and come through to the United States in an organized way, that's the way the Biden administration had framed it, when they were here, they could apply to other forms of relief. We just don't have that number, but all the same, it will impact, again, these four nationalities in the United States. Now, what the Supreme Court ruled here is that the administration could end these deportation protections. It wasn't the final decision. This is going to continue in the lower courts, and two of the liberal justices dissented in this decision. But in addition to that, this has been a program that was the target of Republicans during the Biden administration, because even though this has been an existing authority, this being parole, Republicans argued that former President Joe Biden overreached when he allowed these nationalities to come to the United States via this program, a program or rather an authority that was supposed to be done in a case-by-case basis. Now, this program, just to give viewers a background as to what needed to happen here, individuals would be vetted to come to the United States. They also had to have a sponsor in the United States, so some tie in the United States already to come through this program. And as you mentioned there at the top, nearly 500,000 people benefited from it. Now, this, again, we will try to get numbers as to how many remain in this program that could be impacted, but it was supposed to be a 2-year program for them to live and work in the United States legally. Now, as you also mentioned, this is the second time the Supreme Court has sided with the administration. The administration, of course, peeling back many of the deportation protections that were issued under the Biden administration, and as a result, hundreds of thousands of people will now be without papers in the United States, which of course could make them eligible for deportation. All of this, of course, Bianna, as we've learned from sources, that there is now yet another push by the White House to arrest far more people, 3,000 people a day, as they try to execute on those lofty goals set by the president, 1 million deportations annually. So all of this is happening against the backdrop of this immense pressure by the White House to execute more immigration arrests and deportations, and certainly more people may fall in the crosshairs of those operations following today's Supreme Court ruling.
All right, Priscilla Alvarez in Washington for us. Thank you.